So one of my first big responsibilities outside my own house was when my neighbors decided to hire me, my fourth grade self, to feed their cats while they were gone on vacation. So the cats' food dishes were located in their garage, and I was tasked with filling the bowls each day and then leaving that garage door open just a crack so those cats could squeeze in and out. And their house was surrounded by a brick wall and an iron fence with gates, and everything was really, really secure. So they warned me in advance that these cats didn't eat very much. They roamed around, got food elsewhere, but nonetheless, I needed to check every single day just to make sure that there was food in those bowls and that they had enough to eat. So the first day I unlocked the iron gates and I entered the garage and I dutifully filled the bowls and I left the garage door open just a crack for those cats to get in. The next day I checked the bowls and every scrap of food was gone. They must have been really hungry, I thought, so I refilled the bowls. And then the next day the same thing happened. Now, either these cats ate more than my neighbors knew or something was going on, but what? I mean, we didn't really have wild animals where we lived, and it wasn't exactly easy to get into that yard. So the third day, the bowls are empty yet again. So I decided action must be taken. So after refilling those food bowls yet again with my Hardy Boys radar activated, I staked myself out at the window of our house next door with a good book where I could see our backyard, I could see that brick wall and the garage next door, and I waited. So for about an hour, nothing happened. And then I noticed our dog, Macy, ambling casually through our backyard. She sniffed at some flowers, she raised her snout up to enjoy that gentle spring breeze, and finally, with a long, deliberate look back at the house, she suddenly lurched all 15 pounds of her body up on the ledge that stuck out of that brick wall, and then like a tightrope walker, she walked that ledge delicately all the way to the end of the wall, and there was a small gap between the bricks and the ironwork above, and she squeezed her body slowly and what looked like painfully through, and then dropped down onto the umbrella of a patio table on the other side, slid down the canvas, landed on a barbecue, dropped to the ground, and then made her way like a flash under that garage door. So when I pulled the door up on that garage, I caught her in mid-cat food bite. And she slowly turned to me with that expression that only a dog can do. It's that perfect mix of hopefulness that maybe I haven't caught on, and sheepishness, guilt in case I had. So I learned two things that day. Who the cat food thief was. And creativity isn't reserved for art alone. For it took creativity for her to figure out how to escape our backyard with a 6-foot-tall brick wall with an iron railing above. Creativity to navigate that obstacle course and get to the other side. Creativity to make her way into that garage and steal that food. Sure, she was a criminal, but she was creative about it. Our dog Macy wasn't hampered by that critical voice that so often stops we humans from being creative. Reverend John Lou Johnson talks about it. He says, "Remember, creativity is not restricted to the arts. So these inner critics do not emerge just when we are painting or writing or composing. They infect the rest of our lives when we're problem solving or making dinner or working or playing. They nix our ideas all the time, stymieing our efforts to be our real selves, our creative selves." Reverend Janet Parsons appreciates when a dog like Macy, or a person like you or me, squeezes through that garage door. What can separate us from a life of creativity isn't a lack of talent, whether we see ourselves or others see us as talented. No. What can separate us from a life of creativity is our response to the invitation, to the call. Do we say yes when we feel something inspiring us? Do we even notice? Do we walk through the door that opens, or do we say no, or I can't? I found in life, that there are two groups of people usually. Ones that get called creative, often from a young age, and ones that don't. The creative ones are the ones that draw and paint, sculpt, and make things and write stories. And the ones who aren't creative are the ones who don't outwardly do those things, and they often end up with a self-diagnosed mantra of, oh, I wish I were creative. What I began to realize at some point in my life is that creativity isn't about having a natural knack for something artistic. It was about how adventurous, how innovative in ideas, how willing we are to walk the wall and jump into the unknown. That's what matters. Are we ruled by our fear, or are we willing to try things? We can honor our creativity by not just painting or photographing or cultivating our artist's eye, but also taking on the other role that artists have played so long in our society. Getting outside comfort zones, offering a critique of the things we take for granted, seeing new ways to be in the world and engage with one another. Look at what's been happening just this past week. We've got more proposed laws against transgender people, against LGBTQ and race-related books in school. We have proposed laws against, of all things, drag. Sure, I see the people behind those ideas as bigoted, but they also lack scope of imagination. They lack creativity. Creativity can refer to a willingness to not just generate, but engage with what is new or different. New things, new ideas, new possibilities, new clothes in the case of drag. All resulting in us creating something new through that energy and process that comes when old ideas are challenged. Creativity is not necessarily about producing an end product. Instead, it's the ongoing engagement, that process with what is unknown, unexplored, undiscovered, uncharted. It's figuring out how to get up on the wall, squeeze to the other side, and navigate the obstacle course to that bowl of nourishment. So since we talked about dogs in the first part, I figured let's spell that backwards and talk about God in the second. Don't worry, this is going to be good. So are you familiar with Harvard theologian Gordon Kaufman? So this guy opened up the concept of God in ways that even a confirmed atheist might find intriguing. You don't have to subscribe to it for the rest of your life, but just to try it on. And what he said was, I have become persuaded that theology is essentially a constructive work of the human imagination. An expression of the imagination's activity, helping to provide orientation of the human place within the world. In the course of history, the fertile human imagination has generated in the great religious and cultural traditions of humankind a number of very diverse views of the world and that of the human. Among these are the monotheistic perspectives largely descendant from ancient Israel, in which the symbol God provides the ultimate point of reference and orientation for human life, indeed for understanding all reality. So God then, in Kaufman's understanding, is a symbol of the creativity possible in our world. In short, he ultimately says that God is creativity. So I know it is hard for some of us to hear the word God and separate it from a lot of baggage, real baggage. But how interesting to think that, as critic Wesley J. Wildman talks about, Kaufman's notion of God as creativity answers the question of what theology might look like if it were entirely this worldly, with no traces of mythology or supernaturalism. As a naturalist, Kaufman rejects the supernatural elements of traditional religious understanding, and informed by the natural and social sciences, he sees human beings as, quote, the creative fruit of serendipitous creativity itself. I love that. We are the creative fruit of serendipitous creativity itself. And he says, the big question is whether we can exercise our creative powers to continue the human project, enhancing the parts we prize, controlling our violence, and shunning our terrible ability to destroy the world. Now, Kaufman wasn't the only theologian to think like this. Our own Unitarian Universalist theologian Henry Nelson Wyman said that what we need in our scientific age is a faith that can direct our commitment to the creative source of all human good as it works in the temporal world, open to rational empirical search and to service by modern technology. So Wyman identifies the word God as referring to those processes within our world that are creative and that have good effects, whether human-generated or otherwise. He understands this creative transformation in the world, this natural process, as what has traditionally been symbolized as God. So in liberal theology, there is an understandable trend to both utilize and reject the word God, maybe in equal parts. When we utilize it, we are trying to make it make sense beyond the context and mythologies that often seem crude or impossible with our greater and greater understanding of science in today's world. But these theologians invite us to shake out the concept of God and shake out those old ideas of a personified being, you know, the man in the sky, that old idea. Instead, they invite us to return to the human impulse that created God in the first place and notions of God. This is an impulse that is shared across cultures and centuries. Liberal theologians will define God as love or community or conscience or working for justice, but creativity might even work best because we don't have love and we don't have justice and we don't have community if we are not creative. It's creativity that moves us from simply being automatons, eating and drinking and sleeping and doing rote tasks. You exercise your creativity in countless ways every single day when you make decisions about what to wear, what to say, what to do, what to eat, where to go. Elizabeth Gilbert says, "The universe buries strange jewels deep within us all, and then stands back to see if we can find them. The hunt to discover those jewels, that's creative living." We saw some evidence, artistic evidence of those jewels that have come out of this congregation on our screen a little bit earlier. I love that idea that buried within us, even animals like my dog Macy, are strange jewels. And the process of uncovering those hidden treasures allows us to generate that which is new. Like process theology says, we are always becoming. We are always becoming. Every moment is one of creativity. In these last few seconds and minutes, you and I have created a moment together. We made it. And sometimes the most creativity comes out of moments where people are forced, due to lack of resources or some obstacles in their circumstances, to get innovative. As womanist theologian Monica Coleman said in her book, Making a Way Out of No Way, people with creative and revolutionary ideas, real change makers, often emerge out of spaces of abject failure. Now, when I listen to some of the most strident, ugly voices in our society today, I have to tell you, it annoys me that those people, that their understanding of God has prevailed. That even we, as liberal theologians often, and liberal progressive people of faith, we often buy into those ideas, especially when there are these brilliant thinkers out there who offer exciting alternatives and have been for 50, 60, 70 years. Engaging with God language, even briefly as related to creativity, allows us to recognize the potential in our everyday lives. Creativity is not only exercised when we create a masterpiece of art, it's found in the mundane. It lifts our lives to the level of the divine, the sacred, the holy. And then we can be more intentional in what we do, less inclined to be fearful, more inclined to be grateful for what it is that our lives create. If we see ourselves and our lives as